Hi guys. Today's topic 2.5 is on little equations, and literal equations are essentially equations where there are two or more variables. So if we look at this particular example here, we have 2x plus 4y equals 20. Both x and y are part of the equation, and both x and y are used in the equation. There isn't just a x or just a y. We have both x and y. And little equations uses multiple variables at the same time in order to solve, which makes our answers look very long because there are no numbers when we do little equations. And we'll go through that momentarily. Here are some classic examples of literal equations. Here we have the perimeter of a rectangle, which is 2L plus 2W equals P for perimeter. Circumference of a circle, 2 times the pi times the radius, R, equals C, circumference. Then we have area of the rectangle, A, equals L times W, length times width. Area of triangle, A equals 1/2 B times H, base times the height. Area of a circle, A equals pi r squared, A equals pi times the radius squared. Distance traveled, D equals RT, distance equals rate times time. And then temperature from turning Fahrenheit to Celsius, Celsius C equals 5/9 times the difference of Fahrenheit and 32, F and 32. Some very classic examples. The way that we solve little equations are exactly the ways that we solve them with numbers. We look to see if the variable that we're looking for on both sides. If we do, we try to move all the variables to one side. And then if we do have multiple variables, we're going to have to factor a distributive property in reverse. I'll get to that in a second. And then after we do that, we solve it like we normally do. Opposite of adding and subtracting, opposite of multiplying and dividing, and we do opposite operations until we solve. Let's try one, shall we? Here we give us a numerical example. This guy is 2x plus 13, and it is equal to, plus 3. Let me erase that real quick. Plus 3 is equal to 13. Right? And if we were to solve this, we know that we want to move that 3 to the other side. The 3's go bye-bye. Okay? And then we're going to drop that 2x. Drop that equal sign. And then 13 minus 3, that's 10. And then what's happening to x right now? X is being multiplied. X is being multiplied by 2. So we do the opposite, which is to divide. And we're going to divide by 2 on both sides. The 2's cancel. X is all by itself. This is what we want. 10 divided by 2, 5. X is equal to 5. Believe it or not, this equation here, instead of 2, we have a Q. Instead of, we still have the X. The X is the same. Instead of 3, we have a Y. Instead of 13, we have a Z. This equation, QX plus Y equals Z, is the exact same equation as 2x plus 3 equals 13. In that, you have to do the same process. You're going to have to subtract, and you're going to have to divide. Same exact process. The only difference is that we have tons and tons of variables. Our answer is not going to be a number. Our answer is going to be an equation. Just like we subtracted the 3 from both sides here, we're going to subtract first. What are we going to subtract? We're subtracting y. The y's cancel. Let me drop this little line since you guys like lines. The qx drops. Equal sign drops. Now we can't put 10 here because of 13 minus 10 in the initial one. Here, we have to write the z. We have to write the minus y. And the reason why we do this is because we don't know what z is numerically. We don't know what the number is that represents y, so we leave it as z minus y. And just like we divided by 2 in the previous equation, we're going to divide again. But in this case, we're dividing by q. The q's cancel over on the left. X is here. Equal sign is here. z minus y stays. And now we have that additional divided by q. And this is my answer. X is equal to z minus y divided by q. We did the same exact thing on the top that we did on the bottom. These are the same representations of equations. We subtracted here first. We also subtracted here first. Same thing. Then we divided second. We divided second up here. Same thing. The only difference is we subtracted numbers and divided numbers here in this equation on top, and the equation on the bottom, let's call this equation 1 and equation 2. The equation on the bottom, equation 2, we were subtracting variables and dividing variables, which leaves us with variables as our answer. Our answer is an equation. But if we did have numbers, it would have been a number doing the same process. This is what little equations are. Equations that do the same thing as numbers. However, because we don't have numbers, we're going to have equations as our answers instead of a number. Let's try some more. Here, we have y is equal to x minus q divided by h. Okay. In order to solve for x here, we have to get rid of this denominator. And we get rid of this denominator by multiplying by h, or h over 1 if you want to turn it into a fraction. These two guys go bye-bye. They cancel. That's what we want. This x minus 1, q rather, drops. Here, we have h times y, or hy. Lastly, x is being subtracted by q, so we're going to add by q on both sides. Q's go away. On the left-hand side, we have hy plus q equals x, okay? And then I'm done. Okay, first step, we multiplied by h. Second step, we added both sides by q, okay, in order to get x by itself. The next example that we have is 4 times x minus q is equal to x. We have this thing in parentheses. We want to get rid of the parentheses. We could distribute, and that could be a thing, but I think it would be easier in this case just to divide both sides by 4. Okay, if we divide both sides by 4, that 4 on the top and bottom goes away, and the numerator, which is a parentheses, x minus q, drops, and the parentheses goes away. Okay, and then we have x over 4 over here. You know, let's do this in an easier way. I didn't notice that there was x on both sides. All right, we will distribute. It actually would make our life easier. The other way would have made life a lot more fractiony, and I know we don't want to do fractiony just yet. So we're going to distribute the 4. 4 times x is 4x, minus 4 times q, which is 4q, and that's going to be equal to x. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is I want to subtract that 4x from both sides. Remember, there's a 1 in front of that x. Subtract 4x from both sides. The negative 4q drops. 4, take away 1 is 3. 4 is the bigger absolute, and it's negative, so it's going to be negative 3x. Okay, and then the last step, x is being multiplied by negative 3. We're going to divide, and divide both sides by negative 3. Okay. On this side, we have a negative and a negative. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So we get 4q over 3 is equal to x. Okay, this is one way that you can write it, or you can write it as a fraction times q equals x. These both are legitimate ways of answering that. Okay, first thing that we did was we did the distributive property, and we distributed that 4 across. Okay, the next thing we did was we subtracted 4x from both sides. And then the last thing we did was we divided both sides by -3, okay, in order to get that 4/3 times q equals x for our answer. So we really haven't talked about factoring yet in order to solve these, and that would be our next problem, the next two coming up, and this one is doing something called factoring, or sometimes I call it the distributive property in reverse. Bwahaha. So we have ax minus x equals c. Okay. Normally, if we had numbers, we would just, combine like terms and call it a day. But unfortunately, we don't have numbers. We have variables. So we're going to have to pull out the x. If you notice, here we have a 1. Let's put a 1 in front of that x. We have ax minus 1x. I'm going to pull the x in front because they both have x. They both share x. And I'm going to put the 1 and the a in parentheses, a minus 1. We factored out, right? This is what this is called. We are factoring out the x. Since they both have x, I could just pull it out or divide it out or distribute it in reverse, backwards. And after I factor it out, I can put whatever's remaining, a minus 1, in parentheses, right? If we take away the x, the a is left over. If we take away the x here, the -1 is left over. And we put that in parentheses. Equals c. Now remember, we're solving for x. And in this case, x is being multiplied by everything inside the parentheses. So what am I going to do? Well, I can divide the parentheses. And that's exactly what I'm going to do on both sides. These two guys cancel. The x drops, which is exactly what I wanted. And then I have c minus a, or c rather, divided by a minus 1. Okay? And that is my answer. Okay. Another way that you can say this is you can say that x is equal to c over a minus 1, but we could actually put it in parentheses and it would be just as good. And I would accept that as well. Okay. So what did we do? The first thing we did was we factored. And then the second thing we did was that we divided. All right, and we divided by what was ever in the parentheses, a minus 1. Factoring, distributive property in reverse. We pull out the variable or number that they share in common, put it in parentheses, and whatever's left over goes inside the parentheses. All right, here's another one. 2m minus nx plus, or equal rather, equals x plus 4. And so draw a line. And the first thing I want to do is I notice this is the left side, right? This is the right side. And I notice that we have an x term on the left and negative nx, and we have an x term on the right, x. I can't do anything in terms of solving for these guys unless these guys are on the same side of the equal sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the nx. I'm going to add nx to both sides. The nx cancels on the left. Okay, that gives me 2m. Here, x plus nx is just nx plus x. Again, I can't do anything with that guy right now because I can't combine them because, well, they're variables. There's not numbers or coefficients in front. Plus 4. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. All right, they go bye-bye. We have 2m minus 4 on the left side. We have now the nx plus x on the right. They both have an x. We have an x here. We have an x here. We can pull it to the front. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to pull the x to the front. And whatever is left over, we're going to put it in parentheses. Okay, in this case, what's left over is an n here, and that's where the n is going to go. Plus sign is going to go in the middle. And remember, there's a 1 here, and that 1 is also going to drop as well. So now we have x times the sum of n plus 1 equals 2m minus 4. All right, x, we want that bad boy by itself, so we divide both sides by n plus 1. What I do on one side, you know you got to do to the other. The nx, or the x, the sum of n and 1 cancels on the left, and we have this 2m minus 4 over n plus 1 equals x, and we're done. Okay. We can also do it in another way, or have another answer. We can have that nx plus 1 in parentheses, and that would be just as legitimate. Two equally good answers. Okay. First thing we did was we added x on both sides. Okay. The second thing we did was we subtracted 4 from both sides. And then the next thing we did was we factored out that x, distributive property in reverse. Okay, we factored the x. And then the last thing we did was we divided both sides by n plus 1. Okay, 4 steps. And that gave us 2m minus 4 divided by n plus 1, and that was all equal to x. Okay. Okay, there's a couple more. Why don't you guys try this out on your own? If you're in the classroom, maybe discuss it with a partner. See if you guys came up to the same answer. Work on it for like 5 minutes or so. Discuss for another 5 minutes. Think, pair, share. And then we'll get back to it. For me, I'm going to do it right now. But hopefully you guys will pause this and give it a try. Do your absolute best. So we have a q equals p plus 2x. We want the x all by itself. What's happening to x? Well, 2 things are happening to x. Thing number 1, x is being added by this p. And we want to get rid of it, right? So I'm going to get rid of it by subtracting by p. What I do on one side, you do to the other. Okay. The p's cancel on the left. And here we have q minus p. Right? The equal sign goes down with it. And that 2x also goes with it and drops. Yay. What did we do? We subtracted p from both sides. Okay. Next thing that's happening to x is being multiplied by 2. So I'm going to do that opposite operation, and that is to divide. And what are we dividing? You always divide by what is being multiplied. Dividing by 2. That is our second step. We divide it by 2. Okay. The 2's cancel on the right. Here I have q minus p rather, over 2. Or q minus p divided by 2. Set that equal to x. And guess what, guys? We're done. 2 steps. We subtracted p from both sides, and then we divided both sides by 2. Okay, next one. We have g equals q times x times p, and that's all plus y. I think I want to rename this real quick, and I'm going to rename it just so it might be easier to see. The the division that we're going to have to do in a moment. And let's rename this to G equals QPX plus Y. So basically, what I did to rename it was I put the P after the Q, and I put the X after the P, right? And we can do that because of the commutative property of multiplication, which we talked about some time ago. Lovely. I see that X is being multiplied by Q and multiplied by P, and I also see that X is being added by Y. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of that Y. I'm going to subtract Y from both sides. That's the first thing that we do. Subtract that Y. Okay. The next thing we do is, well, I guess I should draw the line. I'm going to always forget to draw the line. It's more of a new school thing. The Y's cancel on the left. We got G minus Y on the right. Equal sign drops, and that whole QPX drops as well. Okay. Now, what's happening to X now? X is being multiplied by two numbers. X is being multiplied by some number Q. X is also being multiplied by some number P. So I'm going to do the opposite, which is to divide. Q divided by Q, P divided by P, they cancel. What I do on one side, we do to the other. So what did we do in our second step? We divided. What did we divide by? We divided by Q, and we divided by P. Okay. And that gives me X all by itself. And that's going to be equal to G minus Y on the top, divided by Q and P on the bottom. And then I'm done. 2 steps. Subtracted both sides. Well, first we renamed, really 3 steps. Then subtracted Y from both sides, and then divided both sides by Q. Okay, that's our introduction into little equations.